Hi, folks.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Tim. Nice to see you again. Summer going well?
Well, I guess if you can say that we did not get flooded, um,
Ah,
What
that
should we
that's
talk
good.
about today?
which we did not. So happy about that.
Are you there? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
What
Yeah.
is this?
Like, yeah.
Share.
No, I know. I don't know. I'm gonna start with Lola. Uh, yeah, it doesn't go up. You know, like, no. But they're sort of, they are kind of our go-to people.
Okay.
I mean,
Am I sharing?
um, they, that's what it meant.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Okay.
And she,
Oh, all right. So this is a slow summer week. So as I was planning the this week, I was hoping that I would have written content to discuss about how the framework of TSP-enabled agent um, protocol can be then integrated or layered upon with protocols such as MCP and A2A. I got most of it, but not in finished text. So I would suggest we do some, I will get the latest version we have and then maybe talk over the approaches and we can discuss whether those are, um, will be suitable, convenient to the problems we want to solve, right? So that would be the plan for that main topic. And then before I start, I will also just display the antitrust policy notice and the trust IP's IPR policy notice. And again, the content of that is in this wiki link, which have all our working group information there. Um, so as usual, I don't know, I didn't prepare any, but any of the news to share any new introductions today? Probably not. But yeah, anything to bring up since a week ago? Not too many news this week? Okay.
No, too busy with national holidays. So
Yeah. I've been doing all of that and watching
oh
uh, World Cup too. So my
yeah,
time is all gone. Yes. Um,
Is
that's
that
okay.
working?
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And my news is that my laptop screen broke this week, so it's in the Mac Genius Bar getting repaired, with a
Oh,
manufacturer's defect. So while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm on my basically my big gaming and entertainment PC, and I don't have a camera on it, but I got the microphone working. So
that's nice. That's nice. I have you noticed the price going up a lot?
jeez,
Yeah. I thought those were, was that, all the Mac stuff are so expensive to start with, and yeah, apparently not only that, everything else is going up too. So,
I mean,
um,
yeah, but it's because you can do Docker installs on a Mac and you can't do it on a PC. I think
yeah,
that's like, and so as a result, all the agent stuff that requires Docker is happening on a Mac. I mean, I'm certainly that when I'm doing my ChatGPT Steve, I'm going to do a Docker install so I can use my agent harness
okay,
fractalic.ai. It doesn't work without Docker. So
yeah,
I'm stuck like everybody else. So the price goes up.
yeah, yeah. Um, Anything else to share before I jump into the TEA spec?
I just want to mention something quick to Lynn. Hey, Lynn, I looked at an old post of yours about the Canadian AI for all, I think, stuff in
Mm,
Canada. I'm developing a proposal around that. I think that could be a good, potential partner for Trust over IP, the Canadian government in some form or another. Uh, so
Hmm.
yeah, because
Cool.
obviously America is totally insane, but so so I
I
don't want to
didn't
go
say
anywhere
that.
near. I don't want to go anywhere near anything that's gonna and might be, related to Mossad as well. So I keep away from both of them at once. Go 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 north.
Speaking of that, I do see, so other than the, um, there is a article I read about the these data centers because there's a lot of you know ob uh, objections showing up. So the data centers are moving to Canada. Actually, I read new ones being considered or being planned in Alberta. So
Yeah,
Yeah, Meta.
Meta just signed a huge deal with the Alberta government. Yeah, I heard about that.
yeah. Um, so maybe you can burn everything there, so you don't have to build the the pipe
Well,
and export.
well, we have the oil and the hydroelectric, so and lots of
Yeah,
empty space.
And
yeah, it's
cold
actually
weather.
a good thing to do.
Yeah, cold weather also helps reduce the air conditioning costs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
okay. So maybe I would just jump into the spec now. Like I said, to get the latest one, you go to this document um, under Trustwire piece repo, and then under spec and class is the main body. The rest are like headers and introductions, etc. Currently, all the content sits in a branch called this patch one. So engine patch one is the branch that's the latest. Um, so the only main chapter that is still to do is this. It used to be called MCP over TSP. Um, uh, People asking what is TMCP. That's about the same thing. But we've talked about how to make it, formalize this so that it's really in a protocol over TSP or over, I should say, TEA. And so this name and the content will be reframed so that it's not specifically to MCP, but we will use MCP and maybe A2A as an example. So those in those two cases, these two will have additional content about how we connect with it. Both
Okay.
of these.
So my question is, so you're going to drop the use of the term TMCP entirely?
No, I'm not gonna not drop at all. I want not to say this chapter will be a chapter, maybe will be separate chapters. So there will be a section talking about just in general how you do this, and then specifically as examples for MCP and A2A. So the rest of the document are not exclusive to MCP. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand all that. I'm actually just asking about the name because yesterday I brought up the subject. Riza, who is, the head of Quai, my organization, is kind of picking a fight straight in, straight in coming inside the gate. And basically he wants to do SMCP, which stands for Secure MCP, and he's
Yeah.
having some conflicts with I don't know particularly what members of which board, whatever. I don't know the whole hierarchy of the organization. But I also want to make sure he wasn't going to have conflicts with you with the SMCP, because once again, secure MCP and trusted MCP or is going to be potentially a branding conflict. So I wanted to investigate that issue with you and actually have him talk to you if it was going to be any kind of a problem or you want to work out how you're going to do this.
Yeah, I've noticed several other kind of designs.
Drummond's also discussing things. He knows what's actually going on here.
Yeah, drumming, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's um because the um charter for the virtual private knowledge working group included in not the name of the working group, but in the charter, the term that one of the deliverables was an SMCP protocol. They LF Legal flagged it, and MCP apparently is a trademark now. At LF, so LF said, "Hey, there's an issue around that." So anyway, Riza is in discussion with that, but when that came up in the DTG meeting yesterday, both Steve and I flagged and said, "Oh, okay, well that's that could affect what's used here too." So it's just a heads up, Wenjing, that that question has been raised by LF Legal, and so I don't know exactly what to do about it.
I
But
would say nothing. So TMCP just an acronym.
yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and hopefully it's not an issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry too much about it. But I want to get to um, the meaning of TMCP, or if we want to use another phrase, it will be MCP over TSP. Another capture the whole story because it's a much more of a integration rather than a new protocol, right? That's why I'm saying TMCP is not a new protocol. It's MCP. It doesn't change anything. It's purely 100% MCP. We're not modifying MCP. But it's an integration of the two schemes in a similar way that MCP integrate with OAuth, for example, for authorization. And so there's two aspects that's really um, has been the definition of what is TMCP all along. And one aspect is how the protocol layering would work. So unlike OAuth, for example, TSP is very different. It's a lower layer protocol, right? So in one big aspect of it is MCP as an application or higher layer protocol running on top of a TSP. Now, today's MCP run over HTTP, or they call streamable HTTP, a version of HTTP. Um, and that works perfectly for TSP, which also run on top of that. So MCP has one or I think two concepts that are quite fundamental to how the integration will work. So MCP, in one sense, is independent of transport, even though they have been consolidating on this streamable HTTP more and more, and that's a good choice. It makes stability, interoperability, etc. But MCP can run over STDIO for local file access, and theoretically can run on any transport. They've dropped that as a deliverable um, which was in the list before, and focus on making SHTTP mature and reliable first. So, but the concept and the layering are perfectly okay. So, so that's the first step. That is, TSP will become a new transport layer for MCP. Um, so that's the first aspect of it, of the integration. So that allows the transportation be going over TSP. Um, it didn't quite say how then you integrate the rest of it, right? So, that's just relatively straightforward thing to do. The rest of it is then how the MCP agent would behave. So the agent changes, the MCP protocol does not. The protocol is transparent and you may gain some security features out of it, but the main change is going to happen is how the agent is going to work. And that's where TEA comes in, because this specify how your agent would then use the TSP and the mechanism built on top of it for authorization, for accountability. Um, and that's what this specification is about. So we specified both cases over here, then that's the whole picture. And you can see that the whole thing does not modify MCP. So MCP itself provided a transport, provide a certain way of um, uh, a API or a way of using these stateless messages, right, in the MCP layer for connecting client and servers. So that continues to be the same. The difference would be whether you use OAuth for certain things versus you use TEA for other things. And so that, you know, technically there's nothing exclusive, but once you choose one, you naturally going to be making decisions based on that, a certain kind of framework. So we will assume that if you have an agent and you are going around to follow the reference framework that we talked about it earlier, then you naturally would fit it into the TEA specification a much easier way. So it is not a modification of MCP. And it's even cleaner in the A2A's case because A2A explicitly say they would provide they would be so specification has this explicit language saying how do you bring your own transport. So but the concept are exactly the same, other than the fact that MCP currently would like to be fully integrated so that they can get a better interoperability. So their priority right now is not in independent transport, but rather getting SHTTP working properly. So anyway, that's the plan, and I think maybe I should pause to see if anyone have issues. Sorry.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to you. Okay, yeah. So again, if you look at it, this particular picture, right, TSP on the bottom, and then we are building TEA or authorization mechanisms on the top. And if you look at it, MCP is a side is on here, right? I don't know you can see my cursor, but MCP is another protocol
We can
sits
see it.
on top of TSP. Yeah. So the MCP protocol doesn't change, but the agent will change. The agent, because agent is the one that's doing, hey, who am I? Where's my identity? How do I get, all those logic, of course, is within the agent. The agent changes. The MCP protocol proper does not. You are using the same thing for the same purpose.
So that so 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 we can position this as, hey, anyone using MCP can essentially add this functionality without having to change anything. I mean, to the extent that they want these trust and delegation capabilities, they're now taking that into account with the architecture of what they're building, but it's not affecting their use of MCP. Is that what you're saying, Wenjing?
Yes, so
Yeah,
you can use MCP stay the same way as before, and there are at least two ways you can use both TSP and TEA. Because TEA naturally bring so this picture we're showing here is the TEA itself, right? So now TEA naturally bring the TSP with it for that purpose, for authorization and accountability purposes. The rest of application are using MCP. Now, does MCP must run over TSP? You don't have to, right? The two are not necessarily one single decision, but you could. I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So most of the integration happen within the agent because the if you have a MCP library or you are using today, SDK you're using today, you don't explicitly have to replace its transport to use TFC. Because if they, if you are only caring about authorization, for example, you don't have to. But if you do it uh, without it, then there's a hole in your security posture. Because a lot of things, eventually will be your liability or your weakness in the HTTP or all those security problems will still be with you because your communication are not fully based on um, decentralized identifiers and the rest of the TSP. So that I think is the key, and we will of course want to see that both integrated and both are able to be integrated like this. So you will have one layer of TSP as the transport, and on the up layer you have TA and MCP. Both are used by the agent. So that's the picture. Sorry, I should have prepared that picture. It's simple enough. But if you open the MCP, yeah, agent code, for example, right? And so there's a lot of this authorization and trust decision-making area of the agent code do need to change. Okay.
All sounds good.
All sounds good. Okay. We can finish the call today. Um, any other questions, comments?
Just it
Maybe,
just
may-
go ahead.
maybe just a composite. Just sorry, I've been having internet problems, but I'm back on a composite TEA. Have we talked about that before?
A composite TA, what does that mean?
It says that the roles are initiator and responder, and both must be TSP endpoints identified by VIDs. Either may be a composite TEA.
Right. A composite TA. Okay. So the agent, of course, is a application. It's a composite of many things, right? The
Right.
agent does, its logic, etc. It uses MCP or A2A for some purpose. It's not entirely built on MCP. MCP is just one part of the agent.
Mhm.
And similarly, um, for authorization today, the agent would use OAuth or something like that. And
Mhm.
TA is a proposal to use a TSP and then the authenticated exchange protocol over TSP as the solution for that. So that's what this spec is about. Um, so maybe there are two sort of ways they can use or the agent software can integrate and leverage this protocol. One is for authorization accountability, and the other is for TSP itself. And so in our design, of course, the two need to be bound together because otherwise you done all your meta thing, your authorization information, everything. But if your communication actually goes over a separate transport, then the security bridge is not complete. So
Hmm.
I think that's where we are thinking because this specification is really for agent developers to use, so they would need to understand how to bring these different pieces together. And I think
Hmm.
that's what that MCP section need to say is, hey, if you are using MCP to build your agent, this is what you need to do.
Okay.
And that includes replacing the transport and integrating the TEA protocol into it.
But
Hmm.
Eric, weren't you just asking what a composite TEA is?
Yeah, well, I understood. I thought that yes, and I thought that Wenjing was saying that whatever happens, that there needs to be it needs to be represented by a single vid, whatever the different components are. That's the sort of
Yeah, yeah.
point.
Yeah, that's what I call giving the vid to the agent role. So it's a very similar concept. Yeah. You're
Hmm.
basically all of the harness and all the other components that are in that agent all go to the vid. Whatever's acting as an accountable hold is what needs the vid.
Right.
Funnels through to a vid. That's the
Because
sort of.
essentially almost all, if not, exactly 100% things that the agent does, uh, it's it's critical. It has trust issues, it's a security issues there,
Yeah.
and therefore, I think all these protocols that the agent use, if they use more than one protocols, if it's not just MCP, right? They also use A2A or use protocols for querying, for example, for querying databases, and they should all run over TSP if those are critical in the critical path of its trust posture.
Mm. Okay.
So maybe Jarman, does that fit the your use case correctly?
Well, I mean, this and when you say your use case, you- there's there's are you talking relative to decentralized trust graph?
Sure, yeah, yeah. I mean, anything that you've been thinking about, addressing this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean the so the short answer is yes. I mean what we want to do is have authenticated delegation to from a person node in the graph or a VTC, a community node in the graph to an agent. And since we're building everything on the TrustRP stack, TSP is the transport protocol, so that's why I'm an eager customer of the specification because if we can point at this and say, and this is how you do authentication delegation to that agent, problem solved.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you could just have everything ready by Monday, it'd be great.
On another related note,
I am kidding. Go ahead.
yes.
owing to Sankarshan's last two posts, I have proposed another sort of ongoing artifact just for delegation purposes,
Mm.
so that you can kind of basically let anyone in the chain make comments as they delegate and also, further attenuate the capabilities or whatever else and put it all in one cryptographic object. So that's something I'm working on right now, which will go well with this.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so if the integration is clear, I hope I'm sort of I don't have a diagram to go with that, but if the integration is correct, right? Essentially, if anyone's designing a agent, the agent would naturally, in some part of the agent, would consider its, identification. It will then consider where the authorization scheme is going to be. How do you get a authorization? How do you delegate it? And also do verification. So you will be issuing something because you are delegating, or you will be verifying something you're being delegated to, for example. So all those things are basically currently, I think those content are already done in the specification draft. The remaining work is to again, describing how you would integrate this and how that relate to other protocol the agent may be using, and that's the section we yet to finish, and then the rest of it, the draft currently already cover um, the content encoded in ACDC. So the ACDC portion goes into um, specifications about verifiable, how should we call it, verifiable capabilities. So these will be capabilities that's formally verified, and then this can be checked or verified by the receiving end at the gate. These are the checking that's done or verification that's done before the action actually take place. So those we call capabilities, or the other portion of it is related to accountability, which is specifying certain things or requirements that cannot be verified before the gate or before action is being taken, but can be verified sometime later. So these are verification that require a time span, and at a certain point we will come back to say, "Ha, fulfilled this obligation," right?
Mm.
And that's not part of the traditional authorization because you cannot ahead of time make a decision. So those are come behind. Those we use the general term accountability. Both cases, these specifications can be formalized. So it could be like a biscuit. I think that's one example people use, or a Cedar like language expressing these specifications. Those are formal specifications that have a soundness, or it's computational, right? You can actually do computation and verify ahead of time or at a time that you need to make a decision. The
Mm.
rest of that content is verse, and so they are not formalized, and those will become um, similarly, with things that you can check ahead of time and things you will check later. And so both cases can be either formalized or not formalized, or
Mm.
sound or calculable, computable or not computable, but both
Mm.
are embedded within the same ACDC structure. And I'm
Mm.
just restating what the draft is saying. So,
Where sorry, Wenjing, I'm not following if you're pointing to specific text, but I did have a question about how do you verify or confirm a capability? What are you actually verifying?
oh, yeah. So a capability, for instance, the simple example usually people do is a API and the key to use the API, right? So that will be considered a capability. Yeah, so that can be very similar to how we do authorization. So this will become someone will issue you this capability, uh, a credential similar to that, right? The semantics are slightly different, but basically that's what it is. So you give that, And then so that thing can be, for instance, in the case we do also delegation, that case is given to the application. And the
Okay.
application then delegate that to the AI agent. So the delegation happen between the application and the AI agent. And the issuer is the service, right? So the web server or the service provider give you this capability, and that arrives at the application node, or you can say the person, and
Yeah.
the person verifies it. Similarly, you verify authenticity. So this is how TSP verifies it. Then you can
And
do delegation, and delegation essentially adds attenuation or constraints, add conditions, add a bunch of obligations, duties, whatever you want to add to it. Go ahead, add that, and that result thing then you delegate. So each of that step is a TSP relationship. So the message becomes a TCP message and goes over the other side, and you can do verification, etc. I hope
mhm.
that makes sense. Yeah.
I think so. So you said, I mean, simply it was you want to verify that the
Yeah.
the
So we
client has
typically use
access to
the
an API and the keys to access that API. And so
yeah,
the
the
case,
verification is
go
to
ahead.
verify not the keys, but verify you assume the keys are correct. If they're
Yeah,
wrong, they're wrong. But you
right,
are trying to verify is that the person asking me to do is a real person. It is actually real Eric asking me to do this. And to
right.
verify that Eric gave me this authorization is valid. And it is coming from the real issuer. So that's the verification. You want to make sure what you receive are correct. It's true, authentic, and it's not being, tampered with.
Right. But yeah, I was just used maybe give an example of a capability. And are you saying the capability to delegate, or are you talking a capability to
The
search for
word
evidence?
capability usually means again, for easier understanding, it will be API and its access to the API. So if the access is based on key, then yeah,
Mhm.
the URL for the service
Yeah.
plus the key to unlock that service. You
Right.
combine them together, you sign it, put it into
Hmm.
ACDC. That is the capability.
And okay.
It's just a wording to
Right.
call that object. It's a piece of data,
Yeah. Yeah.
authenticated data. Yeah,
Hmm.
right.
Okay.
So, but in that particular domain or that side of work, people are using the term capability for to mean that.
Hmm.
It's a type of authorization that's complete. That's what I mean is they want to use a different term because in the past, authorization means you have to go back to the originating point to um, to verify authorization. It's not decentralized. So
Hmm.
capability is a term to suggest that this particular object you can verify on its own.
Okay.
Um, and so that flow essentially is the new way of authorization and delegation, and also as we talked about added duties and other accountability, well, duties and obligations, right, to that as part of attenuation, if we want to call it. So attenuation can be either shrinking um, the original capability, you limiting it in some way, right? You say yes, you can use that API, but the spending must be less than $1,000. So that would be a limitation added to it. Or or you can also add a condition. So after you've done it within a day, you must report back to me, for example. So those are two examples. One is constraining, the other is um, adding a duty that you need to perform later afterwards. So again, if we come back to the from um, the application or the software in your mobile phone, um, and you are about to delegate some task to a AI agent, um, and so the mental picture is that you're getting some kind of authorization or some kind of capability from another source from somewhere. For example, this website for travel. That is what is the original capability. Then you delegate it to the AI agent, and when you do delegation, you attach a constraint. Say, this must be less than $1,000, and then you attach a duty. Say you must report back to me after you are done, within an hour, right? And so the two pieces of information you added to the TEA capability, or I don't know the right word for it, but it's all encoded in ACDC. And then you pass that to the AI agent. And AI agent immediately verify its authenticity. And that's the first step does. Make sure everything's correct. And then you look at these uh, uh, both the capability itself, the conditions added to it, and also um, uh, and also the duties. So the conditions, some of the condition can be checked. That basically that is attached to it when you access the API. So if you go buy the ticket, the web servers can actually check it. So those will be considered a so in our case, that will be a constraint that is explicit, and we call that before the actual execution. The other pieces, like the obligation to report, are not checked at the time of the execution. So, those are we call them duties. That's I hope Steve, that's okay separation because I want to
I
make
mean,
sure.
that's a type of duty. I mean, duties are many types. If you have a post execution duty, that's perfectly fine. It's just that's not the superset of duties. The superset of duties is, anything that, is both a generatively discriminated or a deterministic that are implemented as, deterministic checks. So it's more like,
Yeah, if it's a deterministic checks, we don't. So in my document, I don't call that duty. Those are verified, and you don't need to think about it, because these are part of the protocol. It determines that anything violate is not possible, right? Or very low probability it cannot happen. I need a word to say um, uh, things that are not deterministically checked by somebody as a matter of fact, or as a infrastructure, because it's you have no
okay, so
freedom to
you got
bypass.
two different things going on here. One, you have something that isn't checked at the time of execution, and then you have something which isn't checked at all. So you could have something which is deterministically checked later,
Yeah, yeah,
a follow on of some sort, an obligation, right?
yeah,
Um, so, but I mean that generally speaking, when I talk about fiduciary duties, I am speaking of the more kind of generative type of interpretation. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think the word duty itself um, has to
Ma-
be used in the wider sense in order for us to be able to talk about larger architectures in a meaningful way, which isn't endlessly redundant with us saying the generative thing and the deterministic thing every time we want to say reference both of those things. We need some type of word for that, and I don't know a better word than duty for that,
Yeah. The
especially
determinist,
because
it's
go
a
ahead.
one axis, but there's another axis which is like who is enforcing it, right? So some are enforced by the infrastructure, meaning that the decision-making entity have no way get around it. So if you say, well, this is encrypted, and then yeah, that portion of the message pass it cannot be break, uh, even if you want to. That's very different from some others we cannot enforce that way. So the enforcements are very different. The enforcement by a honest party versus enforcement by a mechanism that even dishonest party could not break. And so that I just was trying to work out a phrase to um, uh, to mean that to separate the two. And I think those are the terminologies. Probably in certain point we need to go over them and make sure that we all understand the same way and those words are uh, chosen properly or the best that we can get.
Well, like I said, I have no problem with using the word duty. I have a problem with it having an exclusive meaning of that. You know, so
Yeah, so in that case, I will not use duty, then I'll use something else. Because we need to a word to mean that, then the specification can use that to separate
so
these
once again,
type of
I often use the word subjective or generative, but unfortunately, subjective tends to point towards humans, and generative
yeah,
tends to point towards agents, and there isn't really an intersection word between those two, as
like in cryptography, you use
interpretive obligations, maybe interpreted obligations. I don't know. Go on.
yeah.
Or
But
interpreted
anyhow,
duties, or go on.
yeah, we don't need to sort of decide today, but I'm just
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to express the idea, right? That these obligations or these verification, we tend to be using these words as if they are well understood. And now we have so many type of verification. Not all of them are what we it used to mean. Just
Right, right.
yeah, and therefore
It's
I'm looking
deterministic or
for
non-deterministic verification is the primary distinction between the two types of verification. So you could just say deterministic and non-deterministic duties as well, I guess.
yeah, yeah. So maybe that will be a good section in the
Okay.
in terminologies just to
All right.
clean up these ideas separately.
Carly, you got your hand up.
Ah,
No, I was just saying about back into this conditions and duties thing, and I think Wenjing had used an example of a money limit or something like that. And again, it's a challenge of um, in what currency and what currency conversion, and you say you're going to pay this much until it hits your bank account, and then it turns out it's this much, and then the legal obligation for the person who built the system in order to enforce the currency. And now I say you overcharged me, so I'm going to go after you because you're condition. Anyway, it's just like once you start, you want it, and once you start looking at it, it's so messy.
it is very messy, and we are talking about the simplest thing, $1,000, but what dollar, right? Dollar here, dollar there, and all of a sudden you're bringing all the other stuff into it, and shipping at what point, and all of those details will eventually all be will coming in, and I think that's pointing to the real issue that is no matter what we do, it could not be completely deterministic and clearly defined. People may think or pushing that way, but I think in the end that's not possible.
But
And
then,
it's not desirable either.
but the
No,
money,
no, exactly.
I want the money. That's like one of the key things. If I have an agent that I'm going to enable to do something, I don't want it to enter into a deal I can't afford.
Yeah, it can be narrowed down further and further. So if you were saying, okay, use this credit card and how much dollars, then you are fairly comfortable because it will be definition is done by the credit card.
Yeah.
Has its terms, everything already defined, and all of a sudden this becomes much more doable. Um, but yeah, so that's why we are designing in a way that you could contain both. You could contain things that is what's known as sound, so you can always have a conclusion, yes or no, clearly defined, and that's a subset of it. But those are important to have. So you can have those, everything verified, and it's clearly defined one way or the other. Yes or no is clear. And then the rest of it may or may not be that clear. And some of them are purely based on judgment. Some of them don't have clear definitions either. So not all the nouns used in these obligations have a clear definition the way others have, right? So, but there is one thing that no matter which way to go, you minimize the issue of dispute later on, but does not eliminate it. So you may come back say, "Well, I dispute you made that decision. I don't think that's correct." And then the dispute resolution is where the accountability part come in, because if you save those messages, each one has these items in there that allow you to replay what happened, who made that which decision, and the decision maker could, in the log, for example, explain why it's decided this way and can be used for later on for dispute resolution. So that's also part of the section that we talk about accountability.
One thing, I've had my hand up. Sorry, I'm walking now, and but can you say a little bit about what is the format in which these conditions are communicated that we're talking about in this protocol? In other words, literally, is it a Markdown document? Is it a structured JSON? Is it policy expression language? What are you thinking there?
Sure, yeah. So the so all the information is in ACDC, and there are two sections of two big type of information. The one type has a clear definition. So um, you have a schema, right? So that could be, so you are reusing whatever those protocols. If you decided to say, hey, I have JSON schema, here is my, central or some location I can reference them. I have a fully defined, there's an ecosystem behind it, defining these. Everything's very, clear for this purpose. Then yes, it will be JSON schemas and etc. You just type that into ACDC.
Okay, so that's I think that's a good answer. It's a good reason for me to get back further into ACDC. So thanks.
Yeah, so you could have the schema can be content addressed with all of that. So that the entire ACDC scheme will fit in this just as is, no change at all. In
Right.
addition, I think that's where it gets interesting. More interesting is in addition to that, there are a lot of other things that can go in there. So I've talked about the traditional so-called capabilities. I talk about ad hoc or non-formalized language. You could be a duties like Steve was talking about in a prose, in a maybe a legalistic document that can go in there as well as text.
Got it. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. There are other languages that people have defined for capabilities, definitely. For rules, like a CEDAR, these are more formalized languages. These languages are actually very good because the operations are well defined, and the other side can execute them clearly. And so that is also part of the enablement of doing those things too. So those will become the immediate usage of these probabilities. If you want to see a backward compatibility of, these to me are backward compatibility issues, you could do that. So you simply take what you already have and you find a place and stuck into ACDC, right? And that's all you need to do, and you come out of the other side. Of course, there are a lot of design issues into who has the what kind of ID and all of that come in. But if you have a clean definition, I think uh, for schemas based on decentralized identifiers, anything that we will consider as a VID, then I think the whole thing comes in, seamlessly.
So, last question. I know we're almost out of time. So, if you wanted to share an agent fax or agent cards, as they call them under A2A, would you also see just putting that in an ACDC envelope?
Yes.
Great. All right. My questions are
Yes.
done, and I'm about to walk in the dentist, so I will sign off now. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so again, the plan is to continue work on this, and hopefully, before the summer's done, we should have a completed draft. But the majority of content's already in place. Again, the big missing one is how to layer different, protocols, how to integrate different protocols. That we should maybe the next time we meet, we should be able to review that section.
Hey, can I talk to you about GitHub stuff for a couple minutes after the meeting?
Absolutely. So let me
Okay.
stop sharing. I know you guys are working on that. Yes. So I haven't been checking the lot of text messages here. I will review
Well,
later.
basically, I got my changes to the config files sent over to Rye, and I just put my name under yours in the permission config files, whatever they got going on over there. And then, but I still don't have the ability to directly edit. I still have to do a pull request when I
Oh
try to
yeah,
edit
that's built in.
the
Yeah.
so I won't be able to directly edit. I'll have to always do pull requests.
So what you would do, the routine is that when you go edit, it can ask you to create your own branch. If you're using like a GitHub's UI,
I did that. I did
yeah,
that.
you did that, right? Then yeah, you submit a PR.
Okay.
Yeah. So the routine is you submit a PR. Ideally, you say, well, please
Can I
review.
submit a PR, but also be the guy who then accepts the PR?
Oh yeah, you can approve the PR too.
Okay, fine. Okay, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, but I
No,
want
I'll
to
see
go
if I
through
can do that. All right.
the ideal procedure is you submit a PR and you ask the people in the group to review it, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then people, have comments, you make changes, and you go on and on for quite a while, and then everybody say good. Then you submit, you commit the PR, merge the PR to the main branch. Yeah, but if you are doing the first time, of course, we don't have to go through this. You can just go submit it.
Okay.
Yeah, but procedure is that way. It's that way. Yeah.
But I now I'll be able to go back in there and accept it as well. I already submitted it, so.
Absolutely, exactly. And
Okay,
if
so
you
all right,
know, yeah.
all
Okay,
right, just being dumb. Sorry.
Wendy,
No.
Kevin, I have 30 seconds. Can you tell me what a harness is in the context of AI?
Harness,
No.
or people use the word harness to mean the piece of software that uses AI,
The
the one that is, holding it.
use the harness are the ones who fall for AI?
Well, I mean, I would certainly define it as the thing which gives deterministic constraints on the AI. It takes the output of the generative thing and then puts it somewhere else, or it determines whether the function call that the generative AI model has come up with, whether or not it's going to follow through on that function call. In other words, if you have an AI operating with a harness that just says you can write directly to, the command line of whatever, that's just a bad harness, but it's still a harness.
Okay.
So I mean, that's once again, these terms are being used in very different ways by different people, and I don't think it's well defined.
Yep, okay.
I took a stab at trying to create a taxonomy before this whole harness thing came up, based on basically the
Yeah.
idea of harnesses, and so it somehow corresponds to what I call the agent workflow, but not necessarily
Yeah.
some
Don't
people.
think too much of it. It's just a piece of software that's calling the AI
Right,
model.
right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you
basically,
could
yeah.
put a lot of it into it, but you could put very little to it. They all call the same name.
Which is
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
OLAM is calling the AI model, and then a harness would be external to that.
Yeah. There's a lot of open source software pieces say, here is my quote unquote harness. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's complicated by the fact that what we now often call models, like if use Chat GPT or whatever else, and you're making that call there, you're not really calling a model anymore. You're calling an agent which is running various models within its own, agent flow.
Exactly.
So
The model is not
so
clean anymore because the model itself is agentic.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. And
These
Nikki,
are all issues, I tried to clear up, and it's hard. Like you
What's
said about the details.
what's the difference between that and an application? Is it a layer below the application? Does an application sit on top of the harness?
yeah, I think the application is bigger than the harness.
Once again, these things are very, very poorly defined.
Yeah.
People usually use the term harness where they're just kind of creating autonomous agents now. So the idea of integrating harnesses with wider applications, other than just giving it direct control as if it were the user, the language for that doesn't really exist yet. There aren't integrations between harnesses and applications other than the brute level.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to think in a strictly classic terms, and then maybe you can lose it. So in very strict classic terms, you can go download a model, literally a file, to your own computer, and you use a very small piece of software to access or call, right? You basically say, here's a piece of software, I'm going to load it, then I'm going to issue a text, and you're going to return me a text. And that little piece of software doing all this is the harness.
Right.
And
then
that's the simplest term, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Shoot, I'm coming up.
And
Right,
therefore,
a chatbot is the simplest harness. Agreed.
And therefore, you could, in the harness, you can manipulate the agent. Because the agent is blind, has only one. The model, sorry, I should say the model doesn't know what you're doing. The model is blind in that sense.
The inference, the inference engine is driving the AI model, because the inference engine is the one that takes your words, splits it into tokens, and then send the tokens into
Exactly. And the inference model, or people say the harness, is the one in the middle between the person and the model.
Okay, okay.
And the middle can do a lot of stuff there, right?
Right.
It can completely twist it and delete things, add a lot of stuff to it before the model gets the input.
Okay.
And they are heavily manipulating that piece today.
Right, right. Okay, thank you.
All right, we way run out of time, but very enjoyable, valuable meeting, and thank you so much. And next time, I think, Steve, we'll come back to the duties again.
Yeah, all right. So I'll put a topic up about 2 days beforehand to see if everybody likes it. Subtopic for duties next week. Okay.
All
right.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye,
Goodbye
guys.
now.